Welcome to Bicycle Retail Radio, the bicycle industry podcast that brings retailers, vendors, advocates, and thought leaders to the mic for honest discussions about the latest issues facing retailers while taking an in-depth look at the person within the profession.
Welcome to the Flex. Today's version is our Retail Design Flex. It's our ongoing podcast feature focused specifically on store design, remodeling, and merchandising, produced in partnership with NBDA Association member Fixture Lab. I'm Heather Mason, NBDA president. We have Brian Hawkins from Fixture Lab with us. Episode 2, Brian, we made it.
Yeah, 2.
So excited to have you here. Listeners, the Retail Design Flex airs on the last Friday of each month. We cover your most pressing questions on store design. Not only can you listen on Bicycle Retail Radio, but if you go to the NBDA YouTube channel, you can see a version of the episode with images, with our fun faces, and we'll link to the NBDA YouTube channel in the show notes. So Fixture Lab has been at it for years. They do bike shop design, merchandising, not only working with bicycle retailers, but also running, fly fishing, outdoor sports, fixturelab.com. Brian's totally awesome. About, I don't know, let's say a month ago, we decided we were going to do this new episode where you as a retailer, you as a listener can submit questions to the NBDA on merchandising, store design, remodeling, anything you want. And if your question is dope enough, we're gonna answer it on the Flex. So really looking to get into this. I'm so excited for today.
Let's dig into the dope questions.
I know, it's a good word, dope, right?
Sure,
Right.
Why not?
Without further ado, let's just jump in. So a retailer in Michigan, happens to be a good friend of mine, submitted several questions that I thought were really great. And I thought that 3 of them would be perfect for us to focus on today. So here we go. The retailer writes, what if you stink at merchandising? How can you find someone to help you merchandise your store? And what should you expect to pay them? Brian, I'll turn it over to you.
First off, I just want to thank you for not picking his other question was, can you possibly do the podcast with someone else other than Brian? The fact that you stuck with me really means a lot. To answer the question though, I was thinking it through and I ended up having a great conversation with Jolie Hershey from Giant Bicycle because she has a ton of experience for years and years in this kind of realm. So anything that I'm going to answer with that sounds smart is probably her input into this thing here. But we had a really great conversation. One big thing is I think we need to take a step back from this merchandising discussion a little bit and think about what merchandising actually is. It's usually, a lot of times it's viewed as something that someone else needs to do. Like, you say to yourself, I'll be able to make the store look good as soon as I find a good merchandising person. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, Heather, that you've seen it everywhere. 80% of merchandising is just doing really, really simple things predictably, like cleaning, organizing, grouping things together, products that are similar to each other somehow, just grouping them together in proximity, filling in blank spots so that there's not big holes on the wall or on a floor fixture, and then removing stuff that's either outdated or it's one of a kind or just needs to be gotten rid of.
Brian, is it like getting the house ready for company? Like
exactly. Like if you hired a merchandiser, the day before the merchandiser came over, you'd go through the whole store and clean it up and make it all ready. And you'd do about 80% of the job that you wanted them to do just because you were having someone else coming over to do it, just like you do with a cleaner. So, I would start by trying to foster an atmosphere where those basics get done. And then along the way, just try stuff. Like you can always change a display or the way that you've merchandised something, just try things and see what sticks. Now,
What about like when you go like shopping and you go into other stores? I'm always like looking at what other stores are doing. Can you find some good ideas there?
Oh, heck yeah. But I mean, what I would do is walk through the mall, go look at anything you want. Heck, it could be a coffee shop that happens to be merchandise. Maybe their merch is somehow done really nicely. Pay attention to those things. And then I would ask who did those displays. Like, because if I'm Joe that works at the coffee shop and I do a cool little display for my coffee products, I might just be super excited to help someone merchandise cool things like bikes in a store on a freelance basis. You never know. So I would just start shopping for resources out there anywhere you can find good merchandising happening.
What about brands or sales reps or other industry people?
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, they have a vested interest in you guys looking good too. So a great place to start is to ask your reps for brands or lines of products, and just ask them if they have any skills in that. If they don't, do they have any resources that they can bring to the store to help you out? Do they have any other resources like merchandising guides or things like that that might help your team to learn what they need to? I know for a fact, in fact, I worked on a version of this many years ago for Giant. There are merchandising standards manuals that any of the major brands have put together to help their retailers to do a good job of merchandising.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's low hanging fruit. Just get those resources from your rep or from the brand. Sometimes it's on a website that you can download, but that's a really great place to start.
Yeah. And then like, hello, how do you find someone? I mean, we're right here, right? Send your photos to us, design@mbda.com, and we'll answer, we'll help you.
I was going to say that, like, why not send in photos of a specific challenge that you're having in your store? And if you want, I can delete or retouch out logos and stuff so nobody knows who we're talking about. But, I guarantee you, whatever challenge you're working on is something that others are also trying to, it's a problem that others are trying to solve too. So send in pictures and let's dig into very specific cases.
Oh yeah. And listeners, to note, we actually did help someone because the retailer that we talked about in the last Design Flex sent us follow-up photos after we gave advice. Remember, Brian? And said, here's what I did. It was
And he's
awesome.
making great steps in the right direction, which is super awesome.
Super awesome. All right, let's get to the next question. The high price of opto fixtures makes me ill. I mean, I didn't make that up. That's what the retailer wrote. What is a good, moderately priced alternative?
I would like to start by saying, as a person who actually supplies fixtures to the retail world, the high price of fixtures makes me ill too. It's just, fixtures are hard, especially for the bike business, because you've got such unique products to show. It's hard for anybody to get to a point where you can make enough of any fixture product to be considered a mass produced item. So they're always smaller. They're always customized in color or configurations, or it's just something you don't need, 100 of in the store. So I feel your pain. It is hard. But I also have some other ideas or some ideas to help on the whole fixture discussion.
Excellent.
One is lean on, again, just like I said for the last question, lean on the brands that you carry in the store. Specialized, Giant, Trek. I know that they all have resources in terms of fixtures for stores. Now, it's true that if one of those brands helps you with fixtures, they'll expect something in return because they're essentially investing in your store. So it's not always an available solution, and it's not always a great solution for you, depending on what you need to commit to. But it is a place to start. It's a place to begin the process. And we can even help you to specify what you need from those brands. So it's not absolutely a thing where you have to just turn yourselves over to them and they supply whatever they want to supply you. You could work with me, with our team, to help figure out what you need and then work along with those brands, because we do it all the time. Figure out what you need and help to provide that.
That's a great idea. What else though, Ryan? Is there any other things you can think of?
Oh, heck yeah. I want to share.
All
Let's
right, we're
see.
going to do a screen share. So if you are listening, remember when you get to wherever you're going, hop over to our YouTube channel and you can see what Brian's going to show right now. All right, Brian, go
Or
ahead.
like I always say, just pull your phone out and put it right on the steering wheel in front of you and just go down the road that way.
Remember, that was the bad advice.
Okay, so here's some options for fixtures. I have to include Fixture Lab, my company, as a good option because we invented this company to solve problems for the bike industry. We have a full line of fixtures, and we have fixtures that do things like show bike wheels and pedals and helmets, and there's just a number of different kinds of things that the bike industry needs that are unique that we make. So we're definitely a good option. Pricing wise, I find that we're less expensive than Opto. Depends on what you're getting, but could be 10 to 50% less depending on what you get. So we are definitely a good option. Opto is another option that's out there. We've been talking about them. Many people know about Opto. It's been around for years and years, and I have nothing but respect for Opto because it is such a full fixture line, so much to pick from, so many different configurations. They're really, really good fixtures, and they tend to be pricey, but it's a great solution that serves just about everybody that has them very well. Grand and Benedict's is a company that you don't probably know about, but it's a good option. They tend to be less expensive than Opto for sure. And they make a good deal, not quite the variety that Opto does, but they make a good deal of fixtures, which is great.
Oh my God, this is getting me so excited. Not only do I want to buy everything they're showing in these images, but I want to get all the fixtures are great. Like, I love it.
Udesign. Actually, Udesign was one of the first fixture companies I ever used when I started working on store design, because they make some really good, simple solutions. They're almost always less expensive. They're not the most expensive option. They have lots of different kinds of lines, like glass shelves on cable systems and these slat strips that you've probably seen before, which just bolt to the wall, and it's essentially slat wall, but a different way to do it. Lots of different systems there to consider. Econoco is another one that's nice and low priced. These guys, they have lots of great solutions, and their drawback probably is that you have to be careful about what you're getting, because they make a lot of things, and a lot of the things that they don't want to say make them, but they carry them, and they're not all the kind of fixture that you're going to want in a nice store. They make some low priced options that.
So Brian, what you're saying is you're giving us some great options, but you're not validating every single product on the website that you're showing. However, if a retailer wanted to send a question in with a specific question to us with a specific item, we could answer it if it's good,
Absolutely.
usable, or how to use it best. All right. Okay.
This is a lot of the stuff that we end up doing, just figuring out what fixtures you actually need for a store and then making those recommendations. And then on the low end, slat wall is, everybody knows slat wall. Windmill slat wall is a great place to start. There's a lot of different companies out there, though. Windmill makes all kinds of different slat wall. It'll at least get the thought process going. How's that?
That's good. These are great. Slat wall. I'm just thinking of there's a way to do slat wall correctly though, right? That's a whole nother topic, I'm sure.
Well, it's funny you say that because I've got this little document here
I
called
mean,
Slat Wall Pro Tips.
have we been working too closely together?
Dun, 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 slat wall pro tips. Okay, so if you're gonna use slat wall, it can be implemented very well, and it can be a great merchandising tool if you do a few things right. One of them being avoid using the same old dorky colors that we've seen a billion times in terrible stores.
And
Like
if you
you've
want to
seen,
see those dorky colors, head over to our YouTube if you're listening, because they're on the slide.
they're right there. We've all seen that in lots of terrible stores. Not that you couldn't do a nice store with these colors, but it is naturally more challenging to do a nice store with those colors when there are so many different slat wall variations out there that are really great these days, from wood looking things, reclaimed wood looking things, brick, stone, photos, all kinds of different things out there. Next tip is don't just use the 4x8 sheet of slat wall on your wall uncut. Like what that says to a customer walking in is you've taken the path of least resistance and you just want to just put in 4 screws and be done with your merchandising. You know, so even if you just cut the sheet in half and separated those out a little bit, so it looks like you went above and beyond a tiny bit, that's going to help the presentation of the slat wall look better. Don't do slat wall from floor to ceiling. Like you just don't need to. And it looks like you were lazy, like you started to use it as a wall covering versus a fixture system. The fact is you don't need to merchandise things 6 inches off the ground. I mean, you could put a shelf down there and get something up off the ground, but most often you don't need to. And most often you just don't need to put the slat wall from floor to ceiling. It just looks like you're again taking the path of least resistance. Beware, because slat wall encourages inefficient merchandising. Situations like this we see all the time everywhere where slat wall is used. There's no curbs with slat wall, so things tend to spread out over time, and then something sells out and nobody fills that spot back in. So just the nature of the beast is that it creates inefficiency sometimes in stores. So I recommend breaking the slat wall into very small shoppable sections, kind of like our fixtures or like Opto does, or Giant and Specialized Fixtures. Everybody usually has an upright that's about 2 feet apart, and that creates a very shoppable zone for you as a customer. And it naturally compresses products together into a presentation that makes sense and is efficient.
And that picture you're showing just makes me feel so comfortable. Like I want to go in and shop. You know, it looks good.
Yeah, well, they did the right things. They outlined that slat wall with the, in this case, lighted dividers. They didn't have to do that. They could have just put the 4x8 sheet up there, but it would have looked much worse. So they handled the slat wall really well. And then they also did these little inserts, which are cheap. They make lots of different colors. They make them in plastic and metal. Put the inserts into those slats and it makes it a ton stronger. So you'll never have broken slat wall in the store, and it dresses it up. I mean, you can see the reflection inside there, and that's part of what makes this display look good.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. There's your pro tips for slat wall. How's that?
I love that you had that handy, because yeah, there is a way to do slat wall well, and there's an alternative. All right, so if you're listening, be sure to head over to the YouTube channel because you can see the images that Brian just showed. Brian, let's do one more question. I love this question. It's gonna be hard to ask this question without laughing, but I'm gonna try.
It's because the guy swore. He used swear words in his question.
He did use swear words. I'm not going to use those words, but I'm going to say he wrote, "You, Brian, seem like a really cool dude. How much to remodel my store? Seriously, US dollars." All right, we know that Fixture Lab will come in and work with retailers and can, you know, build a store from the ground up or completely remodel. So yeah, cool dude, Brian. I mean, you seem like a cool dude. How much?
Well, you're right. I am extremely cool And more seriously, the question of how much we cost. Heather, if I asked you how much is a house, what would you say?
There's so that yeah, what? I mean,
You would naturally say, well, where is the house, right? And I would say, well, I don't know. And then you'd say, how big is the house? And you'd say, how many floors? And you'd say, what kind of house?
Brian's like, here's what you should be saying, Heather. Yeah, I'm thinking all those things. Like, how can I even ask you that? Because there's so many variables. Like,
Well, I just kind of put you on the spot there. But the fact is, I can't answer the question of how much it costs for us to help or how much the whole remodel is going to take, because every store is different. In our case, what we get paid to help retailers think through is, it's a really big list of things that we could potentially be helping with, from interior floor planning to exterior planning, signage, graphics, finishes, lighting, fixture plans, special displays, even down to doing things like helping negotiate with landlords or with the brands that you're carrying inside the store to make sure that you get what you need to out of that. So it can vary a lot. I would say that the average remodel, it can be as little as a couple $1,000 to have us dig in and help you out. And it can be as much as $30,000 if we're really going for it. It's a larger store and we're helping out with all kinds of different things. If you have
yeah,
questions, you can always call me. We
I'm
can talk
thinking
about
like
these things.
the retailer is really impressed with you, but I think they're also saying, like, how much does a remodel cost? I just like how to even figure that out.
Well, on that topic, I have an amazing resource that I want to share now too. And we'll do this really quickly. It deserves a bunch of time because there's a lot here.
Wow, look at this.
Let me close down some of my other windows here. This we're going to make available to anybody who's watching this, who's listening to this. And it is a form that nearly every store that we're going to do a remodel or a brand new store, that we take them through to help us figure out what that budget should be. And the magic of this is that over the years, I've compiled this list of all the things down the left-hand side here that pretty much cover the bases in terms of the new store. So if you've thought through every one of those items down the left-hand side, then you can rest assured that you've pretty much, like I said, covered the bases and that nothing gigantic is missing. Then additionally, since it's usually early in the process, people always, and I'll tell you, we don't know what we don't know yet about this store. So we can't possibly hazard a guess. But the fact is that we do know some things, like we know that flooring isn't going to be free. So there's no sense in just leaving flooring as an unknown. You have an idea of what the low end or the best case scenario is going to be. Like maybe the best case is that you don't have to spend anything on flooring. Worst case though is the next column. And like if we had to replace all of the flooring and it required lots of work, it's probably going to, it's going to be a whole different cost level. So let's plug that in. And then somewhere between those two numbers, there's probably something that you have a best guess on. And these two first columns, D and E, help you to derive F. And I find by the time we get done with this thing that the best guess budget column is really close to what the budget needs to be in the end in most cases. So that's the magic of this form. I put, there's a couple notes built into the top here. I just ask, or I have you fill in the total number of square feet for the whole store. Then it helps you calculate how much should be front of store versus back of store. And I use 40% as a starter. I would say it rarely is 40%. It's usually 20 to 40%, but it's rarely over 40%, which gives you 3,600. In this case, gives you 3,600 of square feet of front of store space, which is important because that's in most cases all that you need to address with things like flooring or special wall coverings or special lighting. You know, it can be a big difference between what you do out front versus in the back. And then if you just go through each one of these line items, it's got architects, it's got us in there, structural engineers, permits, legal fees, the contractors. People usually don't have any idea what to plug in there. At the end, if you've left all of these blank, but you filled in all of the other line items the best that you can, you're still way ahead of the game, because then you know the one area of your budget where there's a black hole. And the fact is, if you've left all these as zeros, you get to the bottom line here and you're already over budget, then you know you have to really do some thinking. If you're doing good budget wise, then it's time to dig in with the contractor and figure out with them what your remodel is going to cost approximately, and do the worst case and best case budgets.
This is a great resource for retailers. So if you are listening to this, like I said, you can see this. Brian's doing a screen share right now on the YouTube recording of this, but we'll also have, as Brian said, a link to this through the show notes that you can access. Brian, what an incredible resource. I didn't see the past one mention that shops might be haunted. I didn't see anything about ghost removal in this, but
no, but we do have, there is a slush fund built into line 82 here.
okay, all right.
So if you're feeling like, you know, you think this was built on an ancient burial ground of some sort, or maybe a Civil War battlefield, perhaps you enter some ghost mitigation kind of stuff.
Brian, this is wonderful.
If you didn't hear the first podcast, that makes no sense whatsoever.
That means go listen to the first one. Brian, excellent form for our retailers to use to get an idea of, you know, low end, best case budget, high end, worst case budget, you know, just to have an idea before.
And don't forget that you can always call me. Like, this is a service that I can provide. Like, we can take a couple hours and go through this in great detail. Even if we're not going to help you with the rest of the project, we can help you understand what things typically cost inside a store, which will help you budget enormously.
Awesome. I mean, Brian, I think you did a fantastic job answering today's questions.
Thank you, Heather. I agree with you that I did a fantastic job.
All right, listeners, so that wraps up episode 2. Reminder, if you head to the NBDA YouTube channel, you can see a version of the episode with the images that Brian shared today. There's some great stuff there. We're looking forward to hearing from you. We have a lot of questions coming in. Submit your questions on design, merchandising, remodeling, fixturing, anything to both Brian and I. We get them at design@nbda.com. Yeah, thanks for listening. Brian, thanks as always for your expertise. In your time.
Thank you, Heather.
All right, listeners, give us some reviews. I want 5 stars. Brian and I are looking for positive reviews. Share the episode with friends.
6 stars.
6 stars. We're going all in today. Thanks for listening. Go be great. Bye.
See you.
Thank you for listening to Bicycle Retail Radio. This podcast is designed specifically for the bicycle industry, dedicated to strengthening our retailers and cycling community. If it is your first episode, we urge you to take the time and listen to our past episodes. Support the show by first subscribing, then share your favorite episode online with friends. You can go one step further and leave a review. It helps members of our industry find our podcast. Special thanks to NBDA Development Director Rochelle Scouten for editing and promotional graphics. Music provided by Joel Picard.